Hey guys, what's up? It's Rygar the Destroyer, and in part two of this video series, I'm going to show you how to put the parts that you've cut out together. So I want you to start by grabbing parts 1, 2, and 1 of your 1/2 inch by 3 foot pieces of chipboard. And go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun as well, get it warmed up. So the first thing I want you to do is glue the 1/2 inch strip onto the edge of the chipboard just like this. Make sure that it's lined up right with the edge there, and then wrap it all the way around until you've got it all the way around. And one thing that I do that makes this easier is glue both pieces like this. So the shape that you'll want is something like this, but with the chipboard wrapped all the way around. So I'll show you here in a second, but make sure that you glue both pieces of foam core to the chipboard at the same time. It just makes putting this piece together a lot easier. Alright, once you've glued your pieces together, it should look just like this. So the chipboard is flush with the foam core on both sides here, and when you're gluing it together there will be a little bit of overlap here. Actually, when I did mine, there was about this much extra. You don't need to have that much overlap on these pieces, so I cut maybe about a 1/2 inch of overlap here, and then you can just discard this extra piece here. You don't need it. So yes, this is what your piece should look like here, and once you're done gluing that together, you can set it to the side and go ahead and grab parts number 3 and 4 and your other strip of 1/2 inch by 3 foot chipboard. And we're going to be doing the same thing again. Just lay the 1/2 inch piece on the edges here and then wrap that around until you've got another saucer piece like you had before. Alright, when you've glued all of your parts together, they should look just like this. Again, they're flush on the edges, and there will again be some overlap. This time there will be a little bit more. Cut about a 1/2 inch again, and then just discard the extra piece. You don't need it. And then what you'll need to do is grab the pin that you used for drawing out the circles, which I've just dropped. There we go. And go ahead and put it through the holes that are right in the center there. And then what you're going to do is grab that first piece that you made, and then you're going to use these parts, or use the pin to line up these parts. Let's see if I can do it on camera here. Yeah, just like that. So what you'll do is now glue them together just like this. So some things to keep in mind whenever you're doing this is you're not going to leave the pin in there. So don't put any glue on the area where the pin goes. And if you're worried about this being kind of fairly clean, what you'll want to do is kind of line up these joints here so you can try and hide them as easily as possible later. But yeah, just put some glue in between the layers and press them together just like that. Now that you've got these two pieces glued together, go ahead and pull the pin out from the center and set it aside because you will need it again. And then you can go ahead and just set this piece off to the side for right now. And then grab part number 11, 26, and 27. And what we're going to be doing for this part is take part number 11, roll it like this, and then line it up there with that line that you drew earlier. And what you're going to be doing is gluing this together just like this, and it should make a basically a very tall skinny cone, but with the top chopped off. And then what you'll be doing from there is gluing part number 26 here inside of the top, and part number 27 inside the bottom. And what I mean by inside is that you don't want to add any height to the outside there, so you want it to be inside the piece like this. And one thing about that is you might have to trim these parts a little bit. If you saw there, I had to move the outside piece to squeeze that down in there, and you don't want to do that. So just take a pair of scissors and kind of trim the edge off of here until it fits flush with the outside piece without expanding this shape here. And I'll show you what the finished piece looks like here in a second. Now that I've put these together, it might be easier to see what I was talking about. You can't not see the corrugated cardboard here because it's flush with the top of the cone here. I did the same thing on the bottom. One thing that I did is when I put this piece on first, and then when this piece isn't on yet, you can glue this part in from the inside so that there's no glue showing there. And then on the bottom here, I didn't have that option because I was sealing it up basically. But what I did is left a really thin kind of bead of hot glue, and I used the glue gun tip there to kind of smooth it out so that it's nice and flat, because you don't want anything sticking up too much here because you will be gluing it to other parts. Like I said, we are gluing this to other parts, so I'll go ahead and show you that right now. So take that first piece that you made and go ahead and run your pin through the centers again. And there should be a center in the cardboard piece from where you used the compass. And again, we're going to be using that to line up the parts, just like this. So again, we're not gluing the pin in, but we're using it to line up the parts, and just glue these parts together just like that. Alright, now that you've glued these parts together, you can go ahead and remove the pin again. You'll need the pin again, so just keep it handy, and then you can set this piece off to the side. One thing I do want to mention first is I like to keep all of the seams here lined up. That just makes them easier to hide later, but honestly it's not a big deal if you forget to not keep these seams lined up, because you don't notice whenever they've been painted. So go ahead and set that aside and grab parts number 5 and 6, and also your 5/8 inch by 3 foot long piece of chipboard. And we're going to be doing the same type of thing again here. Just line up the 5/8 inch strip to the edges of both pieces of foam core and glue them together. And I'll come back whenever I've done that. Now that you've glued all of the parts together, it should look just like this. And just like the other shapes that we made like this, there will be an extra piece that you'll have to cut off there because you don't need too much overlap here. And for now, you can just set this piece down and then go ahead and grab part number 9. Now, if you've watched the video where I showed you how to cut out how to make all of the parts, this piece would look like this here. It'll have a center there. So what you'll want to do is draw a line between the center point and this outer circle here, and then cut along that line, and then just cut the center of the circle out just like this. So your part should look like that when you're done. Now what you're going to do is you're going to grab that piece that you just made and this piece here that you just finished cutting out, and you're going to overlap these parts to make a glue tab. And what you'll want to do to get the proper size for this is lay it out on top of that piece you just made and overlap it until the pieces are flush with the edges there. So if you see how I did that, I'm just holding it with my hands here. And then what you'll want to do is grab a Sharpie or pencil or something and then mark out where that line was. So now that you know where to glue, you can go ahead and take this part and let me show you here. Glue this line together and then glue this part to the top of this piece here. And you'll want to make sure that none of the glue is showing there, just to kind of make sure that it's clean. Usually what I do is run the glue all the way around the edge and then drop this on just like that, but I'm sure that there's other ways to do it as well. Your part should now look like this. So on the top it's got a cone shape, it's kind of cut off here, and then on the bottom it's still flat. So for right now, you can just set this part down and then go ahead and grab part number 8. So just like the other part in the video where I showed you how to draw this part, it has the center left in it. So what you're going to do here is draw a line between the center of the circle and the very edge here, and then cut along that line, and then cut the center of that piece out. And again, just like the last part, take this piece that you just made, set this one on the bottom of it, and then lay it down where it's flush with the edges, and then make a mark there, and that shows you where to glue it. And then again, glue this piece and then glue it onto the bottom here. And again, you don't want any glue showing, so I suggest setting a kind of a ring of glue down and then just pressing this part down onto it. Now that you've glued all of the pieces together, this part should look just like it does right now. So what I want you to do is grab part number 7 and your pin, and go ahead and thread the pin through the center right here. And go ahead and take part number 7, just like this, and go ahead and put it on the other part, like this. So now what you'll do is you'll run a bead of glue along this edge right here. And you'll want to make sure that it's fairly smooth. If you do mess up and it doesn't come out as smooth as you'd like it to be, you can cut a thin strip of chipboard and run it along that edge there to kind of hide the flaws. But you know, even if you do mess up, it's not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy to hide with paint. So once this piece is glued together, you'll take it and you'll put it into the top of the other part that you've made, just like this. And now you can really start to see it turning in to the Hoth turret. So let me go ahead and get these pieces all glued together, and I'll come back when it's done. Now that your Hoth turret is starting to come together, go ahead and grab part number 10. And again, like the other circles, this one, when you watch the video, I show you how to make it just like this, where it's got the center in there. Again, just take, draw a line between the center of the circle and the outer edge here, and then cut the inner circle out. You can just pitch that, you don't need it anymore. Then what you do is you grab your Hoth turret, and you go ahead and wrap it around the center of the body here, and you pinch it together like this until it wraps tightly around the base there. You can see that. Then what you do is just mark where where you would want to glue it, and then go ahead and glue the part, but don't glue it to the base yet. So pull it up here a little bit, use your hot glue gun to glue it together, and then drop it down over the base like this. Again, you don't want to see any glue or anything, so just do a ring around the base and then press it down onto that. Now that you have part number 10 glued on here, go ahead and grab parts 12 through 15 here. That's these ones, and kind of bend them a little bit if they don't already have a bend in them, just so that they're kind of curved a little bit. And what you're going to be doing is laying these out on the side here. Usually what I like to do is cover up the seam here with one of these, and then what you're going to be doing is laying them out kind of equal spaced around the entire body of the turret here. So basically just glue the 4 of these pieces on evenly spaced around the body. Now that you've got the panels glued onto the center tube here, go ahead and grab parts 16 through 18. And what you're going to be doing is gluing them on just like this onto the panels. And there's only 3 of them, and that's because one of these is going to be a door which has a different design on it. So right now is basically where you're going to decide where you're going to put the door. I'm going to do mine here in the back because it's got the seam basically running all the way through it. So it's basically going to be the opposite of where my turret is going to go. Now, if you're making more than one of these, I suggest placing the door in a separate area on each one, because it just adds a little bit of variation in a display. You know, it's not completely necessary, but it's something that I think you should probably do. But anyway, just pick 3 of the panels to put these little things on and glue them, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so up from the bottom there. Alright, now that those pieces have been glued on there, go ahead and grab parts number 23, 24, and 25. That's these little squares here. And go ahead and glue them on about 1/4 of an inch or so from the top, right in the center of the panels that you've placed these on. And there are only 3 of them, so again, don't place it on the panel that you've chosen for the door, only on the sections that you've already glued this piece on. Alright, after you've glued these 3 squares onto the turret here, go ahead and grab 3 of the 5 little hole punch pieces that you've made, and just go ahead and glue one into each of the centers of these squares here. I'll show you that after I've got it all glued on. Now that you've got these little circles glued on there, go ahead and grab this piece here, the door handle, and you'll be gluing it on about halfway on this door here. And so I'll come back when I've got that glued on. Now that you have this piece glued on, go ahead and grab parts 28 and 29 here, these little rectangles. And what we're going to be doing is gluing them on about right there and right there. They're supposed to be like door hinges. So I'll come back whenever I've got those glued on. Now that you've got those 2 pieces glued on, go ahead and grab part number 38. And what we're going to be doing is gluing it over this hole just like that. Make sure that you don't get any glue spilling out over the edges, so don't put too much glue there. Now that you have this top part glued on, I want you to go ahead and grab part number 19, 20, and 21, as well as part number 22, and your last 2 hole punched pieces like this. And what you're going to be doing with these is laying them out in this pattern just like this. It looks like it's showing up on camera, but what you're going to be doing is taking part number 20 or 21, laying it out here, part number 19 right here, part number 22 right here, and then just below that the 2 hole punches, or the little dots basically, and then finally part number 20 about right there. Basically what you're going to be wanting to do is just lay them out about like this here, and then we'll do this part a little bit later. Alright, now that you've got these pieces glued on, go ahead and grab part number 39, your toilet paper tube, and a pair of scissors. And what you're going to be doing in this step, and the reason that I don't have this part laid out before you have it assembled, is what you're going to be doing is cutting an angle that matches the angle here to create the hatch piece, basically like this. So what I usually do is kind of eyeball the angle on the side of a cardboard tube, and usually just cut straight across with a pair of scissors. And what you'll notice is that it creates a point here at the back, which means that it won't lay flat. So what I do after I've cut it is I come back in with a pair of scissors and I just kind of round out that piece there. So now it's round and it should sit more flat on the actual turret. Don't feel bad if you don't get it on the first try. I mean, I've done 3 of these already, so that's why I can just kind of offhand it. But just kind of cut, and don't feel bad if you have to cut more than one to get the right shape and everything on there. And once you've got that piece cut out, go ahead and take part number 39 and push it in here. Now mine worked out to be 13/16. That just happened to be the size of the toilet paper tube. Yours might have to be a different size, but it's not a huge deal. You can just trace your toilet paper tube. And then go ahead and press it in there just like that and run a bead of glue around the inside there. And once you've got that on there, go ahead and glue the hatch onto the top just like this. Make sure that it's nice and straight and everything on there. Now that this piece has been glued down, go ahead and cut out parts 40 through 43. Should look like this. And also grab parts, I think they're 30 through 37. It's a whole bunch of little triangles just like this. And what we're going to be doing is laying these parts here, so parts 40 through 43 down on this second level here and gluing them down, and kind of space them evenly. What I like to do is glue one down and then do one across from it, and then glue a second one down, and then glue across from it. One thing that you want to watch out for is that you don't want to glue one of these down in front of the door. I accidentally did that on the first one of these that I made, so just try and avoid doing that if you can. If you do, it's not a huge deal, because you're probably not going to notice just by looking at it, but just try not to do that. And then once all of those pieces are glued down, take one of your triangle pieces and glue it down on either side, just like that. Typically what I do on this is run glue on this side, and then don't even bother gluing on this side. You'll notice that these don't take a whole lot of glue to hold on there, and it just looks cleaner whenever you don't glue that top side. But I'll go ahead and do that for all of these parts, and I'll come back when it's done. Now that these pieces have all been glued on, go ahead and grab parts 45, 44, your mechanical pencil tube that looks like this, and the one that looks like this, and also this one here. And what you're going to be doing is cutting off a section that's about 5/8 of an inch long from the smooth end of this mechanical pencil tube. And you might have to do a little bit of sanding there to get it smooth, but you'll want it to look about like this here. And then what you're going to do is cut about 3/4 of an inch off of this end, one that looks like this, of this mechanical pencil tube. And you can go ahead and throw this part out, you won't need it anymore. So what we're going to be doing is gluing this piece into the end of the mechanical pencil tube there, so it looks just like that. You'll want to make sure that you glue it straight from all angles, because it may look straight from this angle, but it could be leaning way off to the side just like that. So just make sure that it's straight from all angles when you glue that in there. And also be careful, because certain hot glues, if they get hot enough, can actually melt the plastic used here, so just be careful with that. And then what you're going to be doing with this piece and parts 45 and 44 is you're going to glue them just like this. So make sure that they're flush here at one end and that the pipe kind of sticks out at the other. And once that piece is all glued together like that, you're going to be gluing it right across from the turret, or the hatch, I mean. So this will be the turret. So glue it on. It's hard to do it when it's not glued together, but glue it on something like that. And I'll show you, of course, whenever it's glued. And then we will eventually be gluing the turret in here like this, but don't do it until after you've painted the turret, because This part's white, and then this will be kind of a gray and black mix, so you don't want to mix those there. You could do it by masking it off, but it's just easier to glue it in after it's been painted. Now your Hoth turret should look just like this. You've got this piece glued on here, and then you've got the actual cannon piece off to the side, and you're basically 99% done with the construction on the Hoth turret. Really the only thing that you have left to do is gluing this in, but like I said before, you won't do that until after you paint. So that's all for this video. If you have any questions or anything, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll try and answer them if I can.